Essay, What to Think About Ben Simmons. How about just cheer him on? There are those out there, the skeptics and cynics too, who can't abide any optimism about Ben Simmons. He's washed, or he's done, or some other unprintable description of a career gone wrong, no doubt with its origins in Philadelphia. Who can blame them? It's been a long and more than bumpy ride, starting with the 2022 trade and aftermath. Now, as training camp opens and we have started to once again see that late September ritual, video of Simmons taking and making jump shots even from beyond the three-point line, word from trusted sources of how good he looks, and a dose of positive news about his availability. It began with an episode or our podcast, The Brooklyn, a week ago. We noted that Simmons was actually playing 5-on-5 in Miami, where he's been rehabbing from his second back surgery back in March. We also reported that Brooklyn had sent James Moore, their return-to-performance coordinator, to Miami to monitor his progress, and that relations between the Nets front office and his team are very positive. You could even call them excellent. Then, in less than 24 hours Tuesday through Wednesday, Chris Brickley, one of the NBA's top personal trainers, posted 3 messages on social media, each with a more glowing, even shocking, assessment of where Simmons is at. It started with tweets saying Simmons was ready to have a good season, hype, exaggeration, hope. After all, during those 3 seasons in Philly, before the missed layup, the holdout, the back injury, the trade, the 2 back surgeries, and copious volumes of hate, Benjamin David Simmons was a 3-time All-Star, twice first-team All-Defense, including when he was the runner-up to Defensive Player of the Year and the NBA steals leader, a 1-time All-NBA selection. Before that stretch, he had also been voted Rookie of the Year. That's a heady comparison. Simmons has apparently been working in recent days with Brickley at his Summit Gym in New York. He's been at HSS Training Center for about 10 days, working out and scrimmaging with teammates on the 8th floor, but there's been no leaks we've seen on his performance there. In fact, it appears that the Nets and Team Simmons, aware of past accusations of hype, are laying low, waiting and seeing. Let others talk about him if they want. We'll hold for now. One thing is certain, Brooklyn's training camp this September is far, far different from last year's, both for the Nets and Simmons. Last year, the Nets hoped that Simmons could be a big piece of a culture that might not contend, but certainly would compete. That obviously didn't work. Simmons was hopeful of returning to previous form, free of injury. That obviously didn't work either. Now, the Nets are in a rebuild in hopes of cashing in on as many as 6 draft picks, maybe even the number 1 overall, come June. Simmons, on the other hand, is more or less an afterthought, an expensive one surely, but more valuable, at least in fans' eyes, for his soon-to-be vacant cap space than his impending play on the court. After a much ballyhooed return a year ago, he never took off. Averaging 6 points, 6 assists, and 8 rebounds in 24 minutes a game, all well below his career numbers. His free throw shooting percentage, always an issue, slipped to 40%, his worst ever. Then, nerve impingement issues returned and he underwent surgery for a second time within 2 years. So is there a realistic rationale for Simmons' return to that form Brickley imagines? And suppose he is at that level? It's difficult to get Brickley level positive based on the last 2 years. But it should be noted that the second surgery represented a new approach that would hopefully reduce the number of recurring back issues. It was also less complicated and took a shorter time to recover and rehab, meaning he's had more time to return to 5-on-5 play and prepare for camp than he did last season. He is also only 28, which many see as a pro star's sweet spot when the athlete still retains most of his athletic powers and have the benefit of experience. And despite what the more cynical fans, and the haters, believe, Ben Simmons loves the game of basketball. Yes, he does. His sterling record during those 3 years is one proof, but Simmons has more than proven that love the last 3 years. He has a guaranteed contract, meaning that after all the pain and worse, the anxiety, he could have simply retired, kept getting paid, while confirming all the biases against him. He chose not to. Instead, after initially resisting surgery, he first went under the knife in May 2022, then months of rehab, playing through pain again, a second surgery in March 2024 and months more of rehab. What about him being soft? That he declined to go for a layup and possibly get fouled in that Game 7 versus the Hawks in the 2021 playoffs? It's an old shibboleth from Philly fans, whose own softness got exposed during last season's playoff series with the Knicks. You'd think that 2 back surgeries might absolve him of any such accusation, but this is Ben Simmons and the 76ers fan base. So all that said, what could a healthy, resurrected Simmons bring to a rebuilding team? More wins for S. He could also diversify the offense. There have been reports that Jordi Fernandez might use Simmons in the high post, the fulcrum of a modified Princeton offense. At least that could make the season interesting. Simmons could ruin the tank. That's the latest mantra. Which may or may not be true. The Nets' prospects are seen as so bad, less than 20 wins, that an improved Ben Simmons isn't going to move the needle much for the Nets and as an expiring deal. Maybe there will be fewer ping-pong balls at the draft lottery in May, but the Nets are likely to have 4 first-rounders and 2 seconds in June. That should be enough, you'd think. Besides, they're not winning a ring. So, how to respond to good news? Even if you've been there before and been disappointed? It should be pretty simple. Sure, be skeptical, but root for the home team. What's it going to cost you if Ben Simmons doesn't meet Brickley's encomiums? And he almost surely won't. Not much, unless you're a degenerate gambler rather than a superfan. There's a reason sports is irrational exuberance. It's what makes it fun.